There's been a spike in murder cases, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng and the Western Cape in South Africa. And most of the incidents in those provinces point to an increased use of firearms. The latest police figures revealed that over 2,400 people died in multiple killings between April of 2019 and December of 2022. Chris de Kock is a crime expert, and he joins us now for the very latest on this, or to at least help us make sense of why, Chris, or how criminals are getting hold of guns in the country.
Well, criminals get hold of guns in various ways. Well, hello to the viewers. Criminals get firearms in various ways, but I think the main source of firearms are firearms taken from victims. You know, during house robberies, during other kinds of robberies, hijackings, but especially house robberies, and even where people are careless and they don't lock up their guns during burglaries, firearms are also taken. And then another source is basically the armed forces. In many of our robberies, especially the CIT robberies, you find that R4s and R5s, which are both the army and police issued guns, are used, and 9mm police pistols. So they get it from various sources. I think at this stage, less firearms come from over the borders. You know, many years back, 20 years, 25 years back, there were still weapons which was used in the struggle, and that was then brought over across the border. But we find that less AK-47s are, for example, being used.
What does that then suggest? We'll get to the cross-border exchange of firearms in a few moments, but when you say the other sources, armed forces, meaning the police or the military, do they buy it from them? Do they also steal it from the police? How should we understand that?
Well, sometimes they steal it from the police, or they, during robberies of a station, they take firearms, and that is then being used. And there were even in the past, and in all probability it's still the case, there were cases where firearms were taken or sort of hired from the police, from certain members, not from the organization as such, where police officers either use it in crime or they rent it out to the criminals, to the robbers, for example.
Let's take a look at then cross-border movement of guns. How should we understand that? Who's keeping an eye out on that if it's known that indeed we've got a problem of cross-border movement in terms of guns?
Yeah, well, that's difficult because our borders are not very tight. I mean, we have borders which are quite prosperous, and guns can easily be smuggled through between border posts. It won't necessarily be brought through at border posts. I mean, if we take the border with Mozambique, they even take vehicles across the border, which they have stolen in South Africa. So in those cases, they can just as well bring weapons in. But I think that today less of those weapons which are smuggled are used in crime in South Africa, in murders. But I want to say something about murders. It indeed skyrocketed. Last year, I think I had an interview with you, and at that stage I said there's a 16%, that was the previous financial year, 16% increase in murders. When the annual figures were then released, it was actually 26.1%, which is more than an explosion. I have never seen a single increase in a year of 26. The highest I saw before in the 30 years, 40 years that I'm watching this thing was about 8%. Now 26% is absolutely amazing. And then at the same time, even in attempted murders, there were 18.1% increase. Now, if we take the first 3 quarters, which the minister have released up to now, we must still release the final quarter of this financial year, we had a 11.5, then a 13.6, and then a 10.1% increase. And that is on top of the 26%. But what is also interesting, that even attempted murder, in the first quarter it was 8.4, then 19.4 in the second quarter, and 24.3% in the third quarter. And we must also look at attempted murder, because many people are not killed, but they may just be injured or wounded. I think we blame guns for it, but the problem is, how are you going to remove these guns out of these criminals' hands? You will remove guns from people who are good citizens and who will never use the gun, and who just have a gun for if they get attacked in their home. But the fact of the matter is, the criminal guns you will never remove from society. I think there's also other reasons why we have this massive increase in killings, and in mass killings as well. Figures were released the other day by the minister. The fact of the matter is, I just think these criminals say to themselves, well, we first are not going to get caught. If we look at convictions for murder, it's very low. It actually went down while the murders were increasing. And also, the other problem is that people know that if they get caught after many, many murders, they will just get one lifetime in jail. They won't get, even if you convict them for 26 killings or murders, it is just one life. I mean, it's not 26. They're not going to live 26 times. I think that is actually a main explanation for why people become more and more violent.
Sure. That question has been bugging the country for a number of years, right, in terms of why South Africa is such a violent country. The police minister, releasing the last crime statistics, he indicated that socioeconomic factors play a role in this. He also said that the mushrooming of informal settlements where people live on top of each other was also playing a contributing factor. When you assess the situation, what do you perceive is going on that is driving crime up in South Africa and not down?
Okay, when it comes to crime in general, house burglaries, all the kind of crimes, the socio-economic situation definitely plays a role. If you don't have work, you can't find work anywhere, and you are hungry and your children are hungry, then clearly you will very easily be sucked into crime. You will easily commit crime, take things and go and try and sell it, and then use the money to buy food, or even take food directly. But when it comes to murder, I mean, I can't 100% say the socio-economic situation generate a lot of murders. It is a case of people don't have to commit murder to go and steal something, to break into a house and get some whatever, food or whatever. That I can see, but I can't see the relationship between socio-economic situation and murder.
Thank you very much, Chris, for your time this afternoon. Chris de Kock is a crime expert.